Section 2 would be approval of the agenda tonight. Section 3 would be recognitions, and tonight we do have a fun recognition. We have the recognition of Choctawhatchee High School Indianettes Dance Team, state champions at the 2023 Universal Dance Association Florida Championships Varsity Game Day Division, presented by Superintendent Chambers. Then Section 4, administrative personnel appointments. Tonight we don't have any of those. Section 5, public comment. Agenda items only. That would be our blue card. Section 6, committee and staff reports. 6.1, in-county travel paid for January 2023, presented by Julie Perry, Chief Financial Officer. 6.2, out-of-county travel paid for January 2023, presented by Julie Perry. 6.3, risk management and insurance update report, presented by Russ Frakes, Program Director, Risk Management and Insurance. I think we do have something
Madam
today.
Chair, if I can, before he starts, I
Yes.
just want to thank the superintendent and Russ for putting this together. Typically, these are what, when I go representing the school board, this is FSBIT updates and all, and I always feel that Russ can do the best job of explaining it to us. So thank you,
Very
Mr.
good. Yes.
Frakes.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you to all the board members or superintendent. It's good to be before you this morning. Just want to bring some information to you that's come from our recent Florida School Board's insurance meeting that we had just here, our winter meeting. And of course, just to let everybody know, and just as a bit of review, move through the presentation here that we got pulled together. The Florida School Boards Association, or excuse me, the Florida School Boards Insurance Trust, I should say, is affiliated with the School Boards Association and operates to provide claim services, risk management services to Florida school districts. There are 13 member districts presently, and that organization meets quarterly at least, although more frequently with online meetings and things like that, to go through this annual cycle that really secures insurance for all the school districts that are members. So part of that information I'm going to share with you today is just an update. We're moving into and approaching quickly our renewal, so that will happen at the next meeting, where we'll find out what's that insurance going to cost. They're right now securing insurance. Mr. Dave Stevens, the director of FSBIT, was just with the Alliant brokerage group, and they were in London trying to secure coverage there. Some of the offshore coverage that we'll see here in just a couple of minutes, but just kind of move through some of the information that was shared with us at this meeting that Mr. Bryan and I attended in January. So what we see here is just a market overview. This is insurance industry-wide, so general information about insurance. And you see here, and really what the reason I'm showing this is just so that we can see really with the overview of what's going on with the market. Is pretty simple in that we see all the pricing mechanisms across coverage, general liability to auto liability, cyber insurance, and workers' compensation, all with pricing moving up, capacity, how much insurance there is in the market, insurance companies willing to extend themselves or to expose themselves to loss by securing insurance policies going down, and retentions, in other words, the deductible, how much the client has to retain before the insurance carrier will pay anything on any given loss, and coverage going down or staying, the retentions going up and coverage going down. So we see that across the board with all policies, all segments of the market. And you may notice this yourselves if you open your homeowner's insurance policy. You've seen those same things happening there. You know, the pricing is going up, especially in Florida, where catastrophe exposure is being what it is. We see those prices influenced from a consumer level as well. So here we see, again, this just echoes what's expected as far as renewals, low end and high end versus, and that's really going to relate to the quality of risk. They're looking for, the insurance industry is looking for quality risks. They want to have non-cat exposed risk ideally and limit their exposure. The liability outlook for liability
Well, you
specific.
skipped over cyber.
Cyber, yes.
200%, is that what I saw?
200%, yes, 200% increase on cyber. That market has changed tremendously just over the past 2 or 3 years. Mr. Mitchell can appreciate this as well. He can attest to this fact that that application has gone. I try to help him out as much as possible to fill out as much as I can. I get past our name, and that's pretty much all I can do, and I have to unfortunately hand it off to him. But it's gone from an application of what was probably 3 or 4 pages a couple of years ago. Now it gets bigger every year. So they're looking very closely at that, and that industry has changed tremendously. Just the number of carriers that are willing to even write it has gone down from 30 or 40 to 2 or 3.
Yes, sir.
So
And
very difficult.
if I can piggyback on that, we discussed this at the FSBIT, but we've actually had 2 school districts in the state of Florida, one actually being one of our members in FSBIT, that have had cybersecurity attacks. And I think it was Broward was the biggest one, and they ended up, it's still a mess down there
Yeah,
for them.
it's unfortunate. We've seen a hospital in Tallahassee just experienced a similar loss and actually had to go back to, they went away from emails. They're writing notes on pen and paper at this point just because of what's happened there. So it's scary. Municipalities are a target, unfortunately. Seen as a soft target, and a lot of insurance companies don't want to even be part of the municipal market because of that fact. So it is very challenging presently with just the market conditions that we have to navigate. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means to us here in just a minute. With regard to liability, Safety National carries the coverage for the workers' compensation in the trust. They're looking at where's that retention level going to be? In other words, how much risk is going to be on the school districts themselves or on the trust as a whole? And they're wanting to move that higher from, it's been at 500. They've wanted to push it to 750, 750,000 before they would, before their coverage would kick in, and they would take some piece of that risk, and that's a constant back and forth negotiating those things. So we've kept it. It's been kept at bay with the work that Alliance done, but there is that push that the carriers are making to take less risk. The price doesn't go down though. So as we've seen from the other information there, on the property side, catastrophes are the order of the day here. 21 was the 4th worst loss for catastrophe losses ever. So you can see a 700% increase in cat losses since the 80s. So that's the significant exposure that insurance carriers are feeling now. You see that borne out you see it play out in the news with regard to, certainly locally, we see hurricanes, fires are a big component of that, flood losses as well. And certainly we see other factors with inflation impacting the construction industry that really drives those prices up as well. This is a graphic that I like to show, and you don't need to see, I know it's small, but all of those blocks that you see on this graphic represent companies, insurance companies, that carry a part of the $250 million in coverage that Alliant, the broker for the trust, puts together each year. So they have to negotiate with each one of those, whether it be wholesale market, some foreign markets, as I said, with them going to London to secure coverage there. But it's pretty complicated how that works together, as you can see by this different corridors and layers of coverage that are taken on by the different insurance companies involved. So going out and getting $250 million in coverage is not an easy task, and you can, as you can see by that, by each of those blocks, they're essentially having to be negotiated. That's a company that has to be negotiated with, and that block filled in, the coverage secured each year. So, so that's just a little bit of insight into how that process goes. We'll look at some of the metrics for the Okaloosa County School District specific. So we see our claims counts have remained pretty steady, although we see a low count for 22-23. Of course, that's just a partial year. But I think maybe a better indicator is our per claim average, which we've seen come down, although we would expect to see some development as those claims in the 22-23 year start to mature. But you can see then too, that's shown with our cost per employee coming down, moving in the right direction. Florida School Boards Insurance Trust has a bill review committee, so those workers' compensation claims, when they come in, they look at, I shouldn't say a bill review committee, but a bill review unit that looks at workers' compensation bills when they come in, and they do an excellent job. You can see they decrease those bills on average by almost 50%. So that's helpful with regard to severity and helps drive that cost per claim down. So that's important service that is served there by FSBIT. So a lot of doom and gloom with regard to what's going on in the insurance industry as a whole, and those are things that are outside of our control. This industry-specific issues, and that's everybody's trying to navigate that. But it really underscores the importance of us having a strong risk management program, and we are building that. We've gotten commitment from the very top to having a strong risk management program, and that's very important that we deliver that message. We'll continue to do that. We meet with each of our principals each year and review their specific schools' risk management results and look to ways to develop a plan with them to help impact that and make it better. And we see that coming with the numbers that we reviewed. This year we're going to take a little bit different approach. We've got some new administrators in. We've got to be cognizant of that as we look to say someone that's been around and we've done this with 4 or 5 times. We may not have the same message for them as we do for somebody that's their first or second time. So we're going to take that experience into account as we develop these programs and enhance and move along that to make more advanced some of those that have a little more experience, and make sure that we cover the basics with those that are less experienced. So also that's going to seek to empower our frontline employees so that they engage in the risk management process and help us get better outcomes. Also our property appraisal process. I just, as a matter of fact, spoke with the FSBIT appraiser, Scott Wilder, that's been out at our schools. He's going to come back out and look at those again, and that helps us get better information, more accurate information to ensure that we have coverage that is adequate for our schools and that the results that we get there are accurate. That enables us to, in FSBIT, to deliver a better story to the insurance carriers whenever they're securing coverage, that these properties have been looked at and it's not just simply been indexed, which is something that many schools and many districts, how they approach it. So any questions about what we've reviewed so far?
Ready? No.
Very good. Well, we will have the next time that we look at this, we will be looking at our renewal, so for the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ.
I do
Appreciate it.
have just one quick comment. So just so y'all know, Russ does a great job with risk management. I appreciate the superintendent really taking a focus, because this is a controllable expense that we can be good stewards to taxpayer dollars by educating our employees the benefits of doing things properly, and just all kinds of factors that go into it. But I do want to just recognize Russ. At our last meeting, he was again elected to be the
right.
risk manager trustee. So that gives us again 2 votes when it comes to specific topics that are important to FSBIT. So congratulations to Russ.
Thank you.
And I will make note that Russ is, out of all the risk managers that are part of the FSBIT, Russ is the only one that actually went to school to be a risk
That's
manager.
true.
So
That's true.
we're very fortunate that we have his expertise in this particular field. And again, like I said, I appreciate the superintendent really taking it to heart and using Russ and his team to be a big benefit to our district. So
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations, Russ.
Thank you.
All right. And that brings us to 6.4, Quarterly Progress Report of the Sales Tax Citizens Oversight Committee, presented by Jason Belcher, Committee Chairman.
And that'll happen tonight.
All right. And Section 7, Consent Agenda. 7.1 would be approval of the agenda. 7.2, approval of the minutes of the student disciplinary hearing of February the 13th, 2023, workshop meeting of February 13th, 2023, and minutes of the regular meeting of February 13th, 2023, recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.3, appropriation of District 5 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Crestview High School for Clear Touch interactive displays in the amount of $6,053.
And Dr. Kelly, if I can say thank you very much for your support to
Of
Crestview
course.
High School.
I think that we all do a very good job of representing the county district wide as far as using our school board funds appropriately. Thank you, though, Mr. Bryant. 7.4, appropriation of District 5 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Fort Walton Beach High School for a HiPod system for the football program in the amount of $3,349. 7.5, appropriation of District 5 School Board member capital outlay funds to Fort Walton Beach High School for iPads for the football program in the amount of $1,495. 7.6, Budget Amendment Number 5, Fiscal Year 2022-2023, presented by Julie Perry. 7.7, Monthly Financial Statement for January 2023, presented by Julie Perry. 7.8, School Donations, presented by Julie Perry. 7.9, Invoices to be approved for payment, presented by Julie Perry. 7.10, Payroll Warrant Register and Accounts Payable Warrant Register totaling $31,041,492.01. Self-help insurance claims totaling $339,531.33. And bank transfers totaling $75,127,000 for January 2023, presented by Julie Perry. 7.11, Antioch Elementary School Internal Funds Checking Account Change, presented by Julie Perry. 7.12, Authorization to appropriate federal impact aid funds and make a payment in the amount of $69,546 to charter schools, presented by Julie Perry. 7.13, Renewal of ITB 21-06 Internet Services, presented by Vince Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. 7.14, Renewal of ITB 21-05 Telecommunications Services for the Wide Area Network, the WAN, presented by Vince Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing. 7.15, Renewal of ITB 20-11 Annual Ceiling Tile Replacement Bid, presented by Vince Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing. 7.16, Renewal of ITB 19-05 Chemicals for Cooling Towers, presented by Vince Wyndham, Program Director. 7.17, Renewal with price increase of ITB 18-07 Custodial Equipment and Repair Services District-Wide, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.18, Renewal of ITB 22-14 Band Instruments District-Wide, presented by Vince Wyndham, Program Director. And I'll just say, as a former principal, I appreciate that because we haven't always had those band instrument replacement funds. 7.19, Tag on bid purchase over $50,000, Apple Store for Education Institution, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.20, Exempted purchase over $50,000, Benchmark Education Company, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.21, Sole source purchase over $50,000, SS number 23-20, CAE Healthcare Incorporated, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.22, Renewal of tag-on bid MTS-906BC Playground and Related Equipment, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.23, Addition of Vital Medication Program through United Healthcare to Self-Funded Group Medical Insurance, presented by Russ Frakes.
Dr. Kelly, would it be all right if Mr. Frakes came
Sure.
up for this item?
Russ?
Good morning again. I have Mr. Caraway here with me from Century Insurance,
Good morning.
and we wanted to discuss with you the vital medication program that is being proposed. We've met with the Benefits Oversight Group over the past couple of months. We meet with them monthly, and they have considered and made a motion to recommend to the board the approval of the vital medication program, and we'll explain a little bit about that to you here this morning. So, it's fairly simple in that it impacts several medications that are vital for our employees, and they are in a couple of different areas. One would be insulins related to diabetic treatments, some epinephrine that is something EpiPen, so somebody that has severe allergic reactions, also hypoglycemia medications, and even Narcan. We're unfortunately familiar with these days. We hear that in the news related to opioid overdose treatments, and then albuterol, which would impact folks that have asthmatic conditions. So these medications would be free of charge to our employees if this program is approved. And this is something that we've been looking at with United Healthcare. Here's a listing of those medications specifically that I've included as well, just so we can see. It's a list of, but again, these are vital medications. Mike, you want to go ahead and talk about
absolutely.
the
Good
United
morning,
Healthcare elements?
everyone. Yes. Probably in October, late October, November, we were notified by United Healthcare. As that time, we were fully insured. So they were putting us on notice that effective January 1, the vital medication program was going to be implemented across their entire book of business for fully insured accounts. So we immediately, Russ and I connected, and what they do is they allow ASO plans, which is now what we are, self-funded, to have the option of putting that in for their membership, because now we are the fiduciary. Those are our claim dollars. Do we want to do this? And so kind of my rule of thumb with insurance companies is if they're putting it in across their fully insured platform, it's probably best that we do it across our ASO platform. Not picking on the insurance companies, well, I kind of am, is that if they're going to do it across their fully insured plan, it's a good thing to help manage claim costs, which this will do. So we brought this to the BOG. We have several members in here. We evaluated this on several occasions. One of the things that was brought up by the Benefits Oversight Group is how much will this impact our claims costs? What will be the effect dollar-wise? Last year in 2021, we had around $35,000. We were on track for that in 2022 as well. So we're anticipating that's probably going to be the cost in 2023. So what does this do for our membership? It's, sometimes these medications can be expensive, so now it's a no-cost share, so they have no reason not to go and get those medications. The biggest thing that I see is it keeps folks out of the emergency room, right, for these types of things that could occur, where if they have those medications at their disposal, and again, these are medications that can't get abused, if you will. ER visits, hospitalizations, which are the two most expensive places to receive care. So I think it's a great front-end investment to avoid potential high-cost claims throughout the course of the year.
We would not have to see, we wouldn't have to avoid too much of, you reduce a few ER visits and
Yes.
a hospitalization, and certainly you're covering the cost of that medication, even if that cost increases due to the removal of the cost share. But this
Could
is
I ask
something
a
that-
question, Russ?
Yes, absolutely.
And would that then be why the inclusion of Narcan?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So, any other questions about that program?
No, I think it's great.
All right, very good.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
folks.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone.
Me too.
Okay, and that moves us down to 7.24, self-help project for fundraising and planning only to install new synthetic turf at Niceville High School, presented by Dr. Bill Smith, Program Director's Facilities Planning, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
Dr. Kelly, I have a question.
Okay.
Is there a price range on how much this is going to cost the school to?
It's on them.
I didn't see it. If I missed it, I'm sorry.
No, sir. It was added Friday afternoon, so
Okay.
the initial estimate for all of it in the first time is 1.3 million.
Okay.
And I think, as in the case in some other examples, they will also pursue a plan to sort of front or bank money for future. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And as we go down this road here, obviously self-help projects are kind of a thing that's happened in Oakland County for a number of years. And when a school is looking to do something that might be above a standard of service, like a natural grass field, something like this, it's an avenue that the board's authorized. So what would happen in this case is, and Dr. Smith kind of oversees the self-help piece, is this group would come together and raise all of the funds necessary for the engineering, design, implementation of this program up front before it would come back to this board for approval of the project. But then the second piece of that that is important and will be a part of that second trip back to the board meeting would be a specific plan for making sure that the turf, at the end of its useful life, there's a replacement piece for it. And what that looks like generally is, and we've done this with Fort Walton Beach High School. And in all honesty, when the original turf field was put down at Fort Walton Beach High School long before we were here, a plan in place at that point for the replacement of it would have been the thing to do. But this board, many of you were on the board at that time in 2018, when Fort Walton's turf was renewed, Ms. Perry and I got together and looked at, very simply, what does it cost the district to maintain a grass field over a period of time? Because clearly when you go to a turf field, some of those costs, watering, sprinkler work, irrigation, fertilization, and even employees for mowing, you don't have. So there is some cost avoidance at some level for a turf field, but the cost of replacing a turf field 10, 11, 12 years down the road exceeds the cost avoidance of the school district during the life of it. So what we do is we'll bring back to you the plan that says the district would have spent this much over the period of it, and the new turf down the road would cost this much, X and X plus, and so the school has to have a plan for making sure that that additional cost is collected over the life of the turf. And what that means is set aside, not available in their general operating revenue. And so it's something that Ms. Perry and the finance department keep track of over the time, because we don't want to be faced, if this project comes to fruition, if it comes to fruition 10, 12 years down the road with a request of the board to replace that turf field, right? That's what we would avoid. And it would be our job to maintain that accountability each and every year over the life of the artificial turf, so that when we get to the end of it, it's not a new capital item that the board has to contemplate.
And if I can, real quick, I appreciate that, because I know Dr. White and I were on the board at that particular time, and when Fort Walton Beach came up, and it was just like, all of a sudden, here it is, we had to make a decision with money that we really did not have. And to this day, it was one of those votes that I struggled to approve, because I felt like there should have been a plan in place, so it wouldn't have been put on us. And so it's exciting to hear that Niceville has a plan, and contingent to that vote, I made it a point that Fort Walton Beach has a plan. So in 10 to 12, 15 years, none of us will probably be on the board, but it's still going to be the responsibility of that school and the school district. So
Yes,
I would
sir.
hope that that is in place, so it doesn't put a burden on the sitting board at that time. So.
Correct, absolutely, and it's not regardless of the fact that whether the capital budget is in better shape than it was 5 years ago. That's
Yeah.
really neither here nor there. It's important that these projects that are self-help projects, there's an ongoing cost to them, so that it's sustained by that group.
So there's no, on these artificial turfs, there's no continued maintenance on them? So there's no cost, once you get it in, until it goes the next 10 years? There's
So
nothing?
I'm not the expert on artificial turf, and I may have Dr. Smith come to speak, but there may be some minor things, but certainly as it relates to what you have to do to maintain a grass field, it pales in comparison.
And I think most
Fair
turf,
statement?
they have.
Fair
like,
statement.
Yeah, you can take sections
Section.
out, like some of the carpeting that we have now, if there's wear and tear, you can do a section. You don't have to actually redo the whole
Right.
thing. But
But-
eventually it comes down to you have
But
to.
it's still a cost, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying, and so we just want to make sure that there are no surprises, like we said back in 2018, which was $425,000 worth of surprise. And my other concern, because I've been looking as board members, I've been concerned about this situation, is that this, right after this one, that we have that was 3 other stadiums, high school stadiums. So guess what? Those people are going to be interested once this one goes to if this goes through, they're probably going to be requesting. I know one coach I talked to already told me that school would be interested in doing the same thing. So, I mean, that's just the way it goes. Everybody would like to have that level. But I just want to make sure that it's not going to end up with any other surprises like we've had in the past, and have it for this board to encumber money for the district to pay for those. I just don't think that's good. That's why when I talked about, it's already in a project, that, it's not discretionary for the school to use.
Yes, ma'am. Right, and then just to speak, the budget number right now for this project was $1.3 million. Down the road, the replacement cost is not as significant, so it's probably less than half of that to replace, because you've done all the infrastructure, engineering work, the gravel base and everything that's been laid down. So it's not another $1.3 million down the road, but of course, cost of turfs can go up or down depending, and so I'm sure they're not going to go down over the next 10 years. But right now, an estimate might be $500,000 for replacing of an existing turf field. So that with some inflationary numbers built in is what Ms. Perry and I use to guide the amount that we ask the school to set aside each year.
Now, on this 1.3 that's on here, we didn't get any attachment that said this is because of the different pieces. So this is a ballpark estimate,
It
right?
is. It was provided by, at the end of the day Friday, by Mr. Morella, who got it from a vendor. So I want to make sure that all goes through Vince Wyndham's office appropriately. But I can provide you with the information that he sent me.
Does that include, you think, someone has to go out there and look at the field and determine the situation, because every stadium's different. So
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
we
So
have,
that
don't
would
they
be-
have to
that-
pay for that?
That would be what would be provided, but again, nothing's going to come back to this board. So if it turns out that the actual quote that comes in is higher than that, then the group would have to have those funds available and in the district in some form or fashion before this board would be asked to approve it. So whether the actual final amount comes in at 1.2 million or 1.4 million, that's the number that they'll have to fundraise to make it a reality.
So to make sure that the public is clear, this is not funding coming from our district. This is private money of a group of individuals who are requesting this, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's not terribly unlike other projects that we've had, like the Eagle Ram tennis courts and other things that have been successfully had here. So 2 things just come to my mind. One is, as a former principal, the gratitude for having the opportunity to do self-help projects like this that we are not able to do as a district. And secondly, gratitude again for those important individuals in the community who might find the onus and the responsibility on their own to go out and raise those funds to give back to the schools and those communities.
That's right, Dr. Kelly, and I'll just add, I don't think you mentioned it, but I think we've learned from experiences in the past, and you did talk a little bit about that. And I think, if I remember correctly, because we did learn from experiences in the past, are the schools that conduct these self-help projects, are they required to have all of the money before they start?
Yes, sir.
It could be a while.
It could be. It could be.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else? Thank you. So that brings us to 7.25, approval of the site selection report and recommendation for the new school site in Crestview, presented by Dr. Bill Smith.
And Dr. Kelly, tonight, for public hearing, the board has a proposed resolution and a contract for the purchase of the site in Crestview. The district facility staff presented the site selection report to this board a couple of meetings ago. This is just formalizing that tonight, and so tonight, as we move into that public hearing, we would need the board to take up this item during the public hearing and approve the site selection report prior to your consideration of that resolution.
Okay.
So it may be that for purposes today, we may want to move this item down to the public hearing category just so that it's there and can be considered at that time.
All right, so we're moving 7.25 to discussion, is that correct? Or moving it off of consent?
To public hearing.
Off of consent, and we
To
could
public hearing.
agenda it under that section of public hearing so that it can be voted on during the time when you're considering that resolution.
All right.
Do you need a motion for that, or?
No, I think the
No,
chairman
this is-
can just rearrange that.
And Ms. Mary, you have that correct. Thank you. All right, so 7.26, Computer Science Teacher Bonuses Grant Application for fiscal year 2022-2023, presented by April Branscombe. Any comment? 7.27, Affiliation Agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the HCA Florida Fort Walton Destin Hospital to provide clinical learning experiences for CTE Health Academy of Northwest Florida courses taken in high school, presented by April Branscombe. And 7.28, HCA Florida Fort Walton Beach Destin Hospital Office Lease for the CTE Office Health Academy Program Management Space, presented by April Branscombe. Any comment? Okay. And that would bring us to Section 8, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. 8.1, Employees on Administrative Leave, presented by Dr. Lee Hale. 8.2 would be Deferred Retirement Option Program Drop, presented by Lee Hale. 8.3, Request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of a new job description for ESE Analyst, presented by Lee Hale. And 8.4, Request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of a new job description for Accounts Payable Finance, presented by Dr. Lee Hale. And board members, I do have a note there that there is a non-substantial change to that job description, and that is just a move from 3 years to 5, from 5 to 3 years, background required to be consistent with like positions in that same category. 8.5, Out-of-Field Report for the 2022-2023 school year, presented by Karen Peak, Program Director, Professional Services. 8.6, Employee Separations, presented by Lee Hale. 8.7, Personnel Recommendations, presented by Dr. Lee Hale. 8.8, Employee Transfers, presented by Lee Hale. 8.9, Employee Suspension, presented by Lee Hale. 8.10, Employee Suspension, presented by Lee Hale. 8.11, Reinstatement, Reimbursement of Sick Leave due to line of duty illness, injury, or medical examination, presented by Lee Hale. 8.12, Leave Without Pay, presented by Lee Hale. Section 9 would be the discussion of the agenda. Nothing was moved there. Section 10, Construction Program Owners Representation. 10.1 is the Program Status Report by Mr. Bryant.
Okay, no report today, Madam Chair. We do have a meeting coming up before our next board meeting, but we do have quite a few exciting projects that we're going to be
That
voting
is.
on tonight, so.
That is super.
Yes.
Starting with 10.2. TPM Program Number 6, Task Order Number 31, Pre-GMP for Laurel Hill School's Sewage Treatment Facility, presented by Bill Smith. 10.2, TPM Program Number 6, Task Order Number 30, Scope Modification, Construction of New Electrical Services to Lewis School and Crestview High School with upgrades to Niceville High School. 10.4, TPM Program Number 6, Task Order Number 32, Pre-GMP for Plew Elementary School and Kenwood Elementary School roof replacement.
Dr. Kelly, if I can,
Yes.
real quick. The first three items that we're going to be voting on, Russ has already left, I see, but the things that we're doing now to fix and, not patch anything up, we're actually doing these things. This does help when they go out, like they said, they're doing evaluations of our property, appraisals and all this. This helps. It helps us when they see that we're actually investing the money in doing things without doing the patchworks on them. So in return, we should get better insurance coverage on this because they see that we're actually reinforcing these buildings. So.
Very good. 10.4, TPM Program Number 6, Task Order Number 33, Pre-GMP for Press Box Concession Restroom Buildings at Fort Walton Beach High School, Crestview High School, and Lewis School. And that brings us to Section 11. 11.1
No report this morning.
and 12, Superintendent's Business. 12.1 would be out-of-state student trip request, and 12.2.
Thank you, Madam Chair and School Board. I want to first start off by sharing what I would say is a sad bit of information. And a longtime educator in Okaloosa County, Mr. Don Varner, passed away here recently. And as you know, he was a valued member of our Okaloosa family, a former band director, a former principal. His wife, Janie Varner, also former instructional staff and principal, and just keeping them in our thoughts and prayers. And as you also know, many of their family members currently work in our school district and worked in our school district. So this is a loss for the family and a loss for Okaloosa. Just wanted to share that information. I believe the funeral's this upcoming Saturday, I believe, in Fort Walton. Also want to say I do appreciate Mr. Frakes coming and giving an update to the board on insurance, both on the property side and then coming back also with that vital medication program as doing or providing good services for our employees. And we don't always speak about the insurance side of things, so I appreciate Mr. Bryant's work there and making sure that the board is up to speed and we are up to speed. But insurance is something that we've really focused on over the last number of years, and I think we're starting to see that work. The BOG, that does an absolutely great job in helping lead that direction as well. Just appreciate what y'all are doing. Also want to go back and say, you saw on item 10, just again, the sheer number of construction projects that are happening throughout Okaloosa. And at our next school board meeting, we will see the litany of projects that are continuing to occur throughout the school district. And when we go 3 years back, 4 years back, 5 years back, you know, that we wouldn't have had pages. We would have had a couple items on a sheet of paper. So it's neat to see the work that's happening. It's going to be to the betterment of our students and our employees as we go forward. This upcoming Saturday is our Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation College and Career Fair. I know that many of us will be there on this day. I do want to share with the board that we have over 300 signed up, over 300 students signed up. And we have businesses, we have colleges all throughout Okaloosa. I think we have the most colleges that's going to be here to date. We are almost outgrowing the venue site, so I think that's a good problem to have. But just appreciate the work of the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation and helping set all this up. I want to let the board know that it's budget season again. Of course, we're here in this current school year, but already we've been planning for the 2023-2024 budgets. District department budgets have already gone out, so our department heads are working through next year's budget. As you know, in the April-May timeframe, schools will get their budgets as well, so Ms. Perry and her staff are working diligently in that process. As you know, HR is a big piece of that when the recommendations go out, making sure that those two pieces go out in tandem so we can make sure that we're ahead of the game on that. I will say the job fair that we do annually, we call it sometimes the Teach at the Beach, that Dr. Hale and his group put on, that's April 1st. And we know right now that Okaloosa, as well as the state of Florida, the nation for that matter, hiring teachers is a priority. So I've already talked with Ms. Perry and Dr. Hale, and we know that we hire, I'll say, X number of teachers every year. And we want to be able to provide contracts on that day, but do it in a very responsible manner. And so they will work together to know exactly how many we can feel confidently that we can hand out. For example, we hire about 200 new teachers every year. We will not hire 200 teachers on April 1st. They will look to a conservative number, but we definitely want to be able to hire some folks and secure them because we're very excited about this job fair. Also, I've been keeping the board up to date on the legislative priorities and want to continue to do so as we go throughout this process. I've already shared a little bit of information with you on Senate Bill 202 that's out there right now, and that gives a little bit of information dealing with certification. And we gave our local legislators what was Okaloosa's priorities, and a few of them are in this bill. Again, one is proposing that where you have a temporary cert teacher where they normally had 3 years, they've put it to 5 years. I think that'll be a help. Also, they removed the 150% requirement for minimum teacher salary. And simplistically, that can help with compression. As we know, if the minimum teacher salary has to go up by the 150%, that's going up, which means it's shrinking what the top salary is from the lowest salary. So that compression's there. And in my mind, as I looked at this, this is a nod towards respecting the new teacher salary, because we want to bring people into this wonderful profession, but also honoring our veteran teachers and being able to compensate them in the way that is deserving of the work that they do every day. So I appreciate our local legislators looking at that as well. Also, what's in this bill is the advanced degree would be eligible for a supplement. And as you know, back in the day, if you had a master's degree and you earned that, you were supplemented for that, and then that was taken away. So right now in this bill, it's put back in there. There is a companion bill to the Senate bill as well, which you need. So we feel as though this is making good progress. What's new is there's a Senate bill 896 and a House bill 905. And one of the things that we proposed to our local legislators was to extend the drop for our ed support folks as well as administrative. The instructional staff already had that ability. So after the 60 months, the way it currently is instructional staff has the ability to extend up to 3 years. And ed support and our administrative staff, they don't have that same opportunity. What this bill does is it allows instructional staff, ed support staff, and administrators to also extend, and right now it's open-ended. So there's not a 3 years or 4 years. Right now it's open-ended. And this piece to us was important, as well as the Senate Bill 202, because we looked at it as teacher recruitment and retention. So if we can take certain barriers away, I think that could be a help. Also, as we know, anytime an administrator's hired, there's a trickle-down effect to the classroom where someone's stepping up into an administrative role. So this helps with that as well. There is a Senate bill out there, and this is a little bit new information for you as well, Senate Bill 150, and it deals with safety. And in essence, it deals with threat assessments. We used to have a threat assessment throughout the state of Florida that was from another state, a model. The state is creating its own model now for threat assessments. We're blessed that we have Mr. Danny Dean, who's a part of that state group that's creating this new threat assessment. And again, when you look at some of the people that we have in our staff, they're looked at as leaders across the state. Mr. Dean is one of them. So we're just proud that he's on the ground helping to create this new program. Then you go to career and technical education. And I want to say I'm very proud of the work that April Branscombe and her staff that they are doing with CTE. You know, we do want to be a model for how career and technical education can be implemented in the school district and that connection to the local business industry. And April and her group, they do a great job of having that connection. They actually look at our CTE courses with outside industry and say, are we meeting the needs of this particular course? And how does that translate to the industry? So I appreciate her leading those efforts. I do want to say, and this is just a little bit of a reminder, that over the last number of years, our students on the industry search side, over $10.2 million have been earned in industry certs. And that equates to 18,576 industry certifications. And that's a big deal. And these students are able to take those industry certs, apply it to a job, and have a better wage upon graduation, or banking those when they go through college, and then they have that extra certification there. Dr. Hale will tell the story of his own son who went to college, who did a great job in college, but he'll say it's the industry certs that he earned at Choctaw, which actually got him the job that he has today, doing a great job. So I think that's just a great story of how industry certs make a difference in the lives of students. And I do want to give two other updates on CTE. Ms. Branscombe and her staff have made a legislative request for $307,000 to be used to support building trades and also criminal justice programs. And then the last update is our health academy over at the campus of the HCA hospital. So our students, they were actually able to tour the facility over there where they're going to be taking classes. They also toured the hospital, where they see where they're going to be taking part in some of those clinical programs. So the students were extremely excited about it. Mr. Horton let me know that actually 2 of our students interviewed for positions at the hospital, and 2 of them earned positions at the hospital already. And that position is a patient care technician. So getting on the entry level, and hopefully that's going to take them going forward, whether it's nursing, whether it's one day wanting to be a doctor. But just again, I couldn't be more proud, especially with this also being CTE month, the work that's happening in our school district. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
That's super. Thank you so much.
I have a question, Mr. Chambers. When you're talking about the legislative issues, and particularly on the drop piece, I know we don't know anything final till ultimately the governor signs off and all that stuff, but do we have any indication of where that's leaning? Are you getting any kind of sense out of Tallahassee that that seems to be a favorable piece, or?
So I'll say it this way, nothing is
Yeah.
final until the
I know,
governor
I know.
signs that
Signs it.
document. But I will say, from each of the legislators that we spoke with,
Mhm.
to include the governor's office, all of them seemed very optimistic about this proposal.
Because I'm sure if, you know, with the concerns we have in our district on that, imagine the larger districts, so I'm sure with that backing, and didn't you say that was pretty much throughout the state backing that piece? A lot of
From what is shared with me,
superintendents, yeah. Mhm.
absolutely. You know, there's a school district that's about 10,000 more than we are, which isn't necessarily that much bigger, but
Mhm.
10,000 more than we are. And the teacher vacancies that was shared with me at our superintendent's meeting a couple weeks ago was 200 vacancies. So you think about that.
Yeah.
That's significant.
And one more question, please. When you're talking about our upcoming job fair with Dr. Hale and offering some contracts on the spot, and I'm sure that might be some particularly difficult areas to fill that you don't want to lose that employee because you have certain things. But when you do that, do you basically just, as far as the salary, just go with what we have now and just say, this is what we're looking at with, you know, with the chance of looking at some improvement? Is that how you work that?
Yeah, so I'd actually say 2 things. So one, Dr. Hale and his group knows what the salary is currently, and that's what we would go by. But one of the things I would want to also say, as it pertains to this process that I didn't say earlier, is the key piece is Mr. Horton right now is working with each of the principals to know specifically where they are with their teacher units, specifically where they're going to be for the upcoming school year. So Mr. Horton will basically, through talking with the principal, through looking at our FTE projections, he will say, there's X number of teachers at your school. So let's just say that there's a principal who knows that there's going to be 5 positions. Well, he might say for this job fair, you're going to be able to hire 2 positions. Or there may be a principal who says, hey, I'm going to have 10 retirements. Well, we know maybe their FTE's not going up, but we know that there's going to be 10 positions. So, hey, maybe you can hire 3 at the job fair. So it's very calculated in terms of how many positions we would hire and knowing exactly how many positions each school needs. But then again, back to the salary piece, the current salary is what we would look at.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Do you want to add anything, Dr. Hale?
Good morning, thank you. And just to reiterate, the question specifically was about the more difficult to fill positions and things like that, but the job fair early commitment is not so much about a particular position over another one, it's about the talent in the area. And we want to make sure that we get the early commitments because there's a shrinking job market, or I should say supply.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that we get those early commitments for whomever, whether it be an ESE classroom teacher or whether it be a secondary math teacher and everything in between. So truly, we will absolutely be looking towards our hard-to-fill positions as we always do, but we're not going to turn away anybody that's just a great general ed
Well,
teacher.
these
to
days,
that regard as
everything's
well.
hard to fill, right? It kind of all,
It's all in that
if we need
category.
them.
Some harder than others. Some harder than
Yeah,
others. so.
thank you.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right, appreciate it.
I had just one question, Madam Chair, and I know that this is something that's kind of ebbs and flows and comes back and forth and so forth, but in my opinion, one of the great things about Florida is that the governor is required to present a budget to the legislature, and That's how we do business. And so I'm just curious if you've gotten any feedback about that, or if that's out there yet, or what it might say, or perhaps that might be something that you could speak to us about later.
I think we can look at that and give you an update maybe at the next school board meeting.
Okay. All right.
Anyone else? All right. That brings us to 13.2, board members' announcements and requests for information. And let's start with Ms. Evantik.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mr. Chambers hit on the college career fair. I'm so excited about that. We have, I think, 52 different vendors. That's amazing. So this has really become such a big thing for the foundation for our students. Also, the foundation is hosting a pickleball tournament in April to raise some money. So that's on the district website. So if you're into pickleball, and do you play?
No.
Okay, well.
I wish I did.
Well,
It
you and I'll
looks
be out there
interesting.
watching and cheering them on,
Looks
won't we?
interesting.
Yes, so that's coming up in April. Also, I want to congratulate Baker student Allison Baggett. Miss Baggett went with the weightlifting team, and a lot of our girls weightlifting did great, but she's the only one that came back as a state champion, and I'm so proud of her. And she was a state champion last year, but this year she won it in the Olympic category. So I'm sure we'll be having Miss Baggett come visit with us, along with Coach Carlisle and Coach Oglesby pretty soon, so we can congratulate them in person. Also want to remind everybody about the Peter Pan Ballet coming up on March 11th and 12th, and I know we received an invitation. And also this week is Dr. Seuss Week, so I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot of students with those red and white hats, and maybe even one of your school board members might don that for some reading somewhere. Could happen. Thank you.
We hope it does, Ms. Evantik. Okay, Mr. Bryant.
The only thing, I just wanted to piggyback off what Mr. Chambers said about CTE. And the other, last week I had opportunity, I sit with the Crestview Automotive Department as one of their representatives, and they had one of their former students come back and speak and talk about how important getting those certifications are. This young lady did all 4 years of career of auto, and has done really well for herself. She's 19 years old and working at Step One, one of the Step One dealerships in Crestview, and she told me she's making over $70,000 a year. So, it's really exciting to see how vital these programs are, because these students are walking out, right out of high school, making some pretty impressive dollars there. And, not only that, they're responsible citizens in our community. Just to see how mature she was and how much pride she took in that job, in her job, was really exciting. So really exciting that, we have students and adults that are turning into adults and really making an impact in their lives and in our lives, because I need them to fix my car eventually, because I can't do it. So it's really exciting to see those folks. But also, just going back to some of the legislative issues, I know the Florida School Board Association is really working hard with the Superintendents Association and other organizations, other school districts out there, to really hammer home the importance of retention. Because I believe everybody knows how vital it is now, even the people that are going to be making the laws. So I'm confident that there's going to be some significant progress in helping us being able to not only get these teachers but retaining them. So, but it's really really interesting how Tallahassee works. Like you said, Ms. Evantik, we don't know until he signs everything. So lot changes, like Senate Bill number 1 basically got pulled and turned all upside down. So it's just interesting to see how all that works. But that's all.
Thank you. Dr. White.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. And Superintendent, very much appreciate your kind remarks about Mr. Varner's passing. Many of us here had the pleasure of working with Don, and he was just a great educator, great band director, and a great principal. Also, share our condolences for the loss of another stalwart icon, if you will, at Choctawhatchee High School, and that is with the recent passing of Coach Wyman Townsell. who was instrumental in the success of many, many students in Okaloosa County. And not only was Coach Townsell the head coach at Choctawhatchee for a number of years, I believe he also served as an administrator for the school district at Niceville High School. So anyway, I just wanted to express those condolences, and I'll save my shout-outs for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White. And I'll just say a reminder that Odyssey of the Mind is holding its regional tournament Saturday, March the 4th at Shoal River and Riverside. And Okaloosa County Schools has several teams participating. If you're not familiar with Odyssey of the Mind, that is a competition that has teams of students working on both short-term and long-term problem solving. And it's really pretty incredible to see the projects that those students come up with. And of course, March the 2nd is Read Across America Day in honor of Dr. Seuss's birthday, and we hope we do see some Dr. Seuss costumes coming out, Ms. Ivanchik and others. And many of our schools are participating in other ways to honor Dr. Seuss and his legend. So I know, for instance, Blue Water will be having a sing-a-thon that morning at 9 and 9:30, and that evening at 6:30, and many of our other schools also will be doing some important and fun events that day and that week. Also, just a reminder that Okaloosa County Schools is having a donation drawing for a 1956, believe it or not, older than me, Mr. Bryant, Chevrolet Bel Air, and it looks beautiful, red and white, and the donations are only $1 each. And I have assigned that duty to my husband to buy us some tickets, so maybe we'll be the recipient of that 1956 Chevrolet.
Do you know where it is now? They move it around
I
from
don't
school
know
to
where it
school.
is right now.
So, I don't know. Last I saw it was
Anybody
at
know?
Pryor.
Right, me too. And I know that
It is
ticket
beautiful.
sales have been very successful, and I hope that we can even sell more of those tickets.
Exactly, and we thank the donor, Larry Klein,
That's
for
right.
that vehicle.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And Dr. Kelly, real quick, I believe the Sheriff's Department put out something about a potential scam with that particular,
So be cautious.
Yeah, so be cautious. You get them from the school, if I'm not correct, they have to be purchased at the school? So
Yeah.
somebody coming to house the,
Or purchased through one of the sponsors, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms.
Okay.
Demers also
Yeah.
put something out on our social media about that,
Yeah.
of what the actual ticket looks like, so,
Yes.
so we were addressing that, but it's sad that
Yeah, I was getting ready to
someone has
say.
done that.
It goes right along with the cyber
Yeah.
stuff. And-
Exactly.
And let me add that, and y'all know this, we've had the same kind of things happen with other fundraising projects, and so it's not terribly unique, although it's very sad, and very unfortunate.
What's so good about this project is that all the money that whichever group in the school, they keep it.
Right.
So really, it's such a great, and the tickets are so inexpensive. I think it's great.
Everybody wins.
Yeah.
And I think, as Dr. Kelly said about Mr. Klein, in his words to me, where he just wants to make sure that every dollar has the ability to go to our kids. So that's where his heart is, which is great.
That is
And I
perfect.
just want to add, this is not the only donation that Mr. Klein and his
Yeah.
family has made to this school
Mhm.
district. They've been significant benefactors
Mhm.
to us and our children.
Yes, sir.
We certainly have some wonderful donors in our community.
Yes, we do.
For whom we are very grateful. And so that would bring us down to Section 14, our yellow card system now for public comment. And those are for members desiring to address the school board tonight. At 15 would be the public hearing. We have two now. One is 15.1, public hearing for adoption of Resolution 23-03, approving the proposed purchase and sale agreement of real property between the school board and Wingard Family LLC, presented by Dr. Bill Smith. And then 7.25, we just added the school site selection report.
Right, we'll want to take that one ahead of the other one
Right.
tonight, but we want to be sure we have time for public comment on both of
So we
those.
have both of those for public hearing tonight.
And in regard to Resolution 2303, board members, there has been added to that item on your agenda an addendum to that contract. The seller had requested the ability to do a 1031 exchange with the proceeds there, which has no impact on the board, no cost to the board, and so that addendum simply allows him to do that process in that closing transaction if he chooses to do that. So that will be part of that contract that you're asked to look at tonight in the public hearing.
Okay. Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I believe that brings us to adjournment? All right, our favorite part, and we are adjourned. Thank you.